Welcome to the Edges of Lean. I'm Bella Engelbach, and in this podcast we explore the human and creative side of lean thinking, unusual places where lean thinking is practiced. We meet people who are practicing continuous improvement in many different flavors and styles. So come along with me on a journey to the edges of lean.
Episode 37, Continuous Improvement in Plain Language. Bruno Pešec helps business leaders innovate profitably. He's one of the rare innovators who can claim that he's worked on a regulation-defying freight train and an award-winning board game for teaching entrepreneurship and innovation. And you'll notice in that brief bio that Bruno does not use the word lean. We talk today about how he practices lean continuous improvement and uses it in his innovation practice and never uses the language that we are so fond of. Bruno Pešec, welcome to the Edges of Lean.
Thank you. So happy to be here with you.
So Bruno, it turns out you and I go way back, at least in terms of lean, because you have a game called Playing Lean, which I bought a few years ago, and we've never had the opportunity to meet. So this is really nice to finally meet you. And I do encourage everyone who is listening to this podcast to check that game out. Bruno, tell us about Bruno. What are you doing now, and how did you get to do it?
Okay. So first, as I said, I'm so happy to be here. Lean is a topic that's very, very close to my heart. And I think it ties in nicely to what you asked me. And I remember, I'm now going all the way back, but I promise this will be short. I remember as a kid, I was very, very interested in robots and how things work. And that led me to become an engineer in an adult age. That's what I studied. And during my studies in aeronautical engineering, I heard about this Toyota production system, and it just blew my mind. And that is kind of, I went into industrial engineering, then I graduated as an engineer, worked in companies developing battle tanks, weapon systems, freight trains, etc. And that is how I got to experience what it is to bring an idea to life, and also what it means to fail in many, many different ways. And what really picked up my curiosity is, how can I make things better? How can I become better innovator? How can I become better engineer? And somehow from there, I got to travel the world, work with different companies in different sectors, industries, from defense to entertainment, maritime, oil and gas, medtech, etc. And here I am today sharing with people, hopefully something that they will find useful in their journeys as well.
And I think that, that's a connection that you and I have, which is getting into lean through product development. And there is this big challenge, right? When you start to bring lean ideas and lean thinking into product development, which is product development, while it has a lot of activities that look as if they are a manufacturing activity. So for example, I was in pharmaceuticals, a lot of labs that were doing routine assays over and over and over again. There's also this innovation piece to it, which if you just look at the Toyota production system, doesn't necessarily fit, right? I mean, so there's language that you use and behaviors that you want people to follow, and sometimes it fits and sometimes it really scares people away. So I know one of the things that you're really interested in is how do you bring these ideas to people and just make it less scary, use different language. How are you doing that?
Yeah. So you hit nail on the head, how they say, and unfortunately I had to learn that the hard way. So as I told you, I was so fascinated, mind blown by this whole Toyota production system. And I remember, as a student, I don't want to say crazy, but I was trying to hunt down like originals from Taiichi Ono and anybody who was working. And I was trying to, read or speak Japanese, but I was trying to understand. Okay, what did they actually try to say? What actually happened? How did they translate it to English? What was going on? And I could make a lot of sense out of it. So, for example, in the original, Taiichi Ono writes about Westerners leading management by objectives, by numbers, magic by numbers, etc. But in Japanese, what it actually says is, hey, what we could do is we manage by ninjutsu. And ninjutsu is specific approach to martial arts. And if you're hearing this and you have no clue what any of these words mean, what I just said is gibberish. It's like mumbo jumbo. And I didn't know that back then. So I took that to my friends, to my colleagues, and I tried to explain these amazing things, but no one was understanding what I was telling them. And I didn't fix that as a student. I took that to my work environment. And I remember like going to the front line, to the shop floor and speaking to people. They were just looking at me like, Bruno, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I just started scratching my head. Okay, what is happening here? And then I slowly started realizing, using Japanese words, working in Croatia, I'm a Croatian, so obviously it was in Croatian, but now when I work in English, using different words, not just because they're different language, but because they bring specific meaning, it doesn't work so well. What's more important is kind of understanding what was the intended message and then framing that. So for example, Kaizen, everybody knows about Kaizen today, but it's still, you will have articles popping up, the true meaning of Kaizen, etc. It's not continuous improvement, it's much more than that. Okay, perfect. That's great for lean enthusiasts like you and me, but walking into actual work environment and starting with that, I promise you it will get you nowhere. And you probably experienced something similar as well. It's almost like creating a small echo chamber, right? It's great for you and me and other practitioners in the space, but it doesn't necessarily get us anywhere. So what I've continuously found and keep finding useful for me is trying to really understand what is behind the concept, behind the words like hey junka, hansei, etc. Yes, great words. Yes, they have additional meanings. But for example, hansei. Why call it hansei to your client? Talk about reflectivity or critical reflectivity if you want to be more correct. Explain it in plain language. So the story I like to use to explain hansei is a simple story. Imagine like you're in elementary school and you haven't prepared for an exam and you get a better grade than you expected to get. So when you come home, you take pen and paper and you try to think about it. Why did I get a better grade than I expected? What led to that? Why did that happen? Bam, you explained hansei without saying hansei. Yes, it's great if you're in the room with another lean expert and you just, drop a comment. So it's like a secret handshake and you might feel great. But most people you will try to use your expertise with won't be that. And that is something that we have to remind each other in every space, not just in lean space. Plain language isn't a thing to avoid. It's something to embrace. And I'll just stop here for a moment. I could drone on for hours, but is that making sense? Does that make any sense to you?
It makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that I think is really difficult about that is, as you say, particularly for people who are getting into lean and discovering there's a whole community of people who are as enthusiastic as they are and who are as excited as they are about what lean can do in organizations, that once you start to meet that community and they start to talk in code, right? You want to be in there talking in code as well. And frankly, it's easier. But the flip side of that is that I think that all of us who don't speak Japanese have an imperfect understanding of the words we're saying anyway, right? So we have these translations in our head. It's what it means to us. But it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters whether your translation is perfect or imperfect. What's, as you say, what is really important are the people you're working with, are they moving towards a behavior, right, that will help them have their own understanding of what it is. And I think you're exactly right. I can't tell you how many people I frightened away by.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
one thing that I like to think about it from, especially now we're becoming more and more sensitive to terms like inclusion and inclusivity. And actually what we might be doing accidentally by using such jargon, we are creating an entry barrier, almost like a layer of elitism, which then translates to us accidentally becoming a gatekeeper. And a lot of, in my experience, a lot of lean enthusiasts, continuous improvement enthusiasts, that's the least what I want to be. They don't want to be the gatekeepers. They want to bring everyone on this journey, on this amazing journey of improving themselves in their business. And this is what I hope anyone listening to you or my conversation will trigger their own reflection. Am I actually, by using this type of jargon and by using, it can still be in English, but still be jargon and code, as you call it. That's a beautiful word. Am I actually creating an entry barrier? Because to improvement, there should be no entry barrier. So I mostly deal with innovation. That's what I do. And I say innovation is all about, creating value. And what I say when people ask me, should everybody be allowed to innovate? Or replace that, should anybody be allowed to use lean and lean methods? My answer is absolutely yes. That's such a silly question. Everybody should have the option, but not everyone should be mandated to do it. I know this sounds like semantics, but it's so different from the human relationship perspective. Imagine someone breaking down your door and telling you, from today you're lean, or from today you innovate. So much different than having an option that I open the door and say, hey, I want to try this innovation thing, or hey, I want to try this lean thing. Can you help me on this journey? Can you show me? Can you teach me? Can you help me do this better? So we have this accidental elitism and creating of entry barriers. And sometimes, unfortunately, even in our lean world, they're not so accidental. That's how we protect power in some positions, right? So that's why we build this kind of things. Academia, everybody knows academia, even if they're not in it, because most of us did get some degree or something like that. Academia is a great example of using language to create, ivory towers. You need to learn the language of academia in order to gain your entrance to it.
And it's the same thing when you're working with an organization, right? Because if you go into the organization and your expertise is not exactly their expertise, you may find yourself being shut out if you don't speak their language, right? So it's very worthwhile if you're able to, as you're starting to work with somebody new, to listen for a while, because you don't want to run into that barrier yourself. In order to have the conversation. But I love what you just said about inviting people to come along on the journey, because what could possibly be more lean than saying to somebody, I'm going to do an experiment, will you join me in doing the experiment, right? And right, you're not pushing it, you're inviting them to come and learn with you, and that's about as lean as you can get.
Exactly. And another, let's call it mental model that I absolutely love, is something called extended epistemology. And that is understanding that it's not just about hearing or showing, but there are different ways of knowing. So there is the personal experience, and that is why invitation is so important. So I'm not just inviting you to watch me, I'm inviting you to do it with me. So through personal experience, then you get personal practice. You do it with your own hands, eyes, whatever might the work be. But then there's also presentational knowing, understanding in pictures, not just in words, but pictograms. And that's something we know from Toyota Production System. It's a great thing, visual management. And then there's also the propositional knowing how to express in theories. Why am I saying that I love this model? Is if you look at any experimentation, be it Toyota Kata, PDCA, plan, do, check, act, plan, do, study, act, whichever of those models you like, they have that embedded because you're cycling to them. You're cycling to different ways of coming to understand. And when you're finally able to capture it back, then you have created the standard that you like to talk about without going in all the difficult vocabulary. And that is, I mean, it's just a journey that's amazing to me. I can never have enough.
So how have you used this with clients? How do you take them through that journey when you go in? You start out with somebody new.
Yeah. So here I'm relying a lot on especially my martial arts background. So I've been training martial arts since I was a little kid. I'm an instructor there. I'm an instructor today. And what I like to tell people, you cannot learn how to throw without learning how to fall. So that's one thing. And another thing, what some people like to say, you cannot learn how to ski from a book. Well, you probably can, but you won't be the best. So how I use that in my work is, first, it helped me, as I usually take a role of an innovation coach or someone who comes in, and I deliberately use this term coach. For example, I know that some in the lean space like to use the word sensei. Here is why I don't like the word sensei in this context. Sensei, coming from martial arts, is a very specific type of relationship. In sensei in a dojo is almost like small god. If sensei says white is black, then white is black. That's not how you should treat people as a lean coach or as any type of improvement specialist. Because as we discussed just moments ago, the approach you should be having is having more of an invitation, bringing people along to experiment. So that's a bit of a detour to get to answering your question. I use all of these realizations in the work. So when I work with the client, first I try to understand what is their understanding of the world right now, not mine, not how I see. I don't walk through the door and tell you, listen, A, B, and C sucks, or do E, F, and G. But I walk and I ask them, show me how you do the work today. Show me how does your reality look today. Tell me, walk me through it. I want to feel it with them. I want to smell it, taste it, lick it. Okay, that's going too far.
No licking, no licking.
no licking. But you understand, I want to get the feeling of their reality with all my senses. And then I can offer feedback. The reason I said I connected to martial arts is, for example, I can show you a technique and you can ask me, can you, Bruno, show it again? I can show it again. But at one moment, I need to stop and tell you, Bella, you show me what you understood. Show me how you do it. And then I see you. And because of my experience and expertise, I can give you a direct feedback. I can tell, Bella, try standing more to the side, change your hip, use your hands differently. I approach the work the same way as I told you. I ask them, show me what you're doing, and then I see it. When we talk about value stream mapping, that's exactly it. You're asking people that you're helping to create the value stream map, you're asking them to show you their work, their real work. Gemba, when we talk about Gemba, that's my replacement for using the word Gemba. I just ask them, show me the work. That's so simple in English, right?
Yeah. Just show me the work, and then you have to figure out how to do that, right? Particularly in the innovation environment, it's not always visible what the work is, right? The work in an innovation environment can be mental, it can be happening in a computer, and so finding ways to show the work requires more creativity as well.
Exactly, and that's a beautiful connection, especially to the model I mentioned a bit earlier about different ways of understanding and knowing. What I love, even though we are mostly digital for the last couple of years, what I really love for knowledge work is using pen and paper. It works great, and it's something fascinating that happens when people understand that they can rip paper apart. I don't know if this will be caught on microphone. I'll try.
Oh yeah, got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite, I don't want to say exercises, but kind of when I work with people that are in the knowledge work, especially in the innovation space, and when we start putting ideas down, first people need to get comfortable, because some people feel if I don't know how to draw, I have no right of putting anything on paper. If you can draw a straight line, that's all you need, because you're not about to be Picasso or I don't know whomever. You just need to draw triangle, square, circle, and draw lines between them. That's the first step. And then the next step is, now I cannot remember from straight from the head who said it, but I like repeating it, and that is spend ideas, not money. And the best way to illustrate that is to write an idea on a paper and then rip it apart, because that's exactly what we are doing. And another thing, why it is so helpful, even if it's not knowledge work, but to create this physical artifact on a paper, on a whiteboard, flip chart, internet space, whatever, is it helps us put our ego out of the conversation. So if you and I have an idea that you and I are discussing, and between you and me, let's say that right now we had the whiteboard, a flip chart between us, we put it in front of us. So now I'm not aiming at Bella, and Bella is not aiming at Bruno, but that thing between us, that's what we are discussing. Therefore, it's much easier to go hard at it, because we need to go hard on ideas, but easy on people. We need to respect ourselves every minute of the working time. And I mean, working time, every minute of life. And that's right. So easier if we have a physical thing to discuss, to go hard and keep respecting each other. Because if you're just agreeing what everybody is saying, then it's difficult to move ideas forward. I went in all directions. Apologies.
No, that's great. One of the things that I like to teach is when you're looking at an idea, right, is ideas, particularly new ideas, that they're like babies, and your own baby is always adorable, right? You love your own baby. But sometimes they need to grow and they need to improve, and they may not be the right idea for now. And so there are ways to ask questions about the ideas that are affirmative, right? As opposed to the kind of tearing down that we learn to do, particularly in academia. And so, asking like, how might we overcome this issue with the idea is way better than saying the idea is terrible because it has this issue, right? Because now you're saying something you're also saying, well, the person who came up with the idea, they're not all that great either. So just bringing in, I love that. You got to go hard on the ideas and easy on the people. That's really great. As you were bringing lean thinking into this innovation environment, into the product development environment, what did you see as the biggest challenge? What was, apart from bringing in these very different ideas, what was the biggest challenge in terms of particularly Toyota production system thinking?
Buy-in, and let me explain. When I say buy-in, I mean a very specific thing. So yes, there is agreement that it's difficult to get alignment or buy-in from different stakeholders. I find that workable. What I found surprising, especially at the beginning of my career, and didn't understand, is that needs to be repeated all the time. So it's not a singular discrete event where suddenly the whole organization, bam, we're lean now. But it literally starts person by person. And that is my big learning from that is, and that experience has repeated for almost any type of transformation, that it's very important to have a vertical slice of the organization, instead of saying, well, we need all executives on board, or we are doing bottom-up grassroots movement. If you have a vertical slice, then you have the vanguard and exemplars for the organization. What I mean by vertical slice, few people from the top management, few people from the middle management, and few teams or sectors, divisions, whatever, from the front line. Because we are social creatures, humans. When I see, another line is doing that, and their managers are supporting them, and their executives aren't getting fired or losing their bonuses, because let's get real, people really care about their bonuses. So if you introduce something that will remove that, good luck with your initiative. So when you have this vertical part of the organization doing something, the rest of the organization starts taking notice, and they start being, hey, I want to try that out. Can I try it as well? So now we're talking push and pull in Lean. Hello, why don't we use that in transforming organizations? You want pull from employees. You don't want to push on them like some sort of a tyrant. So that is where my experience has led me. When realizing that getting this buy-in is so nightmarish and that it needs to happen again and again and again, what I started experimenting is, how can I avoid having that? How can I have people ask me like, Bruno, can you tell me more about this? Instead of me being like door knocker, bam, bam, bam. Hello, would you like to hear more about how to innovate and become lean? It's much better when people ask, right?
Yeah. People are not necessarily interested in that. Bruno, we kind of met early, though I don't think we realized it through the game. Tell us about the game.
Oh, so the game is about playing Lean is about teaching Lean Startup. So to those in the Lean space, Lean Startup is one of the younger kids, although it's now more than 10 years. What I like to say that Lean Startup offers is an alternative process for developing products and businesses. And it's very much inspired by lean manufacturing, etc., in a way that it tries to avoid waste of creating things people won't pay or benefit from. So it doesn't go from this cost reduction perspective, but more like, hey, let's avoid this waste at all. And the result of that is avoiding cost as well. What I'm really proud about the game is that we developed the game using the processes that we were trying to teach. So we experimented a lot. We made different iterations. We tested it in many different ways. When we first launched it, it was a failure because we missed the critical assumption. So what happened is we had so many tests with the game and people loved it and were learning what they were supposed to learn. What we failed to test, or we thought we tested, but in fact we haven't, is who is actually the customer of this product. We assume that the people who want to learn the method, they're the customer. But what we realized once we launched a crowdfunding campaign was that it's actually educators, consultants, coaches, those that want to teach the method to the people. They are our real customers, because what we created is a teaching tool. So that was a big learning. And that's why I'm so proud, of using the very method that the game is teaching in creating the game itself. Another thing I'm very proud, so Lean professionals, they are no strangers to using games and simulations. What I say, and I expand on that in a Planet Lean article, is I say that a lot of those things aren't games at all. They're just something that's colorful and maybe looks like a game, but isn't actually a game. A game is something people can play even without the Lean elements. For example, I know that playing Lean is bought by families just to play it. They don't care about Lean methods at all. So it's important. And I mean, I could probably go for way too long, but games are such a great way to introduce concepts that people are adversarial to, because you create this environment where it really is safe to fail. But the big danger of using games and simulations that unfortunately a lot of universities fall into is they use them, but then they don't connect them to the real world. Because as we know from Lean, training within industry and all of that, practice is the best teacher. So games can help you create that temporary bridge where someone will open their mind because they experienced it in a game that, hey, if I do things a bit differently, I can actually expect different results. But you must use that moment. You must go to where the work happens in that moment and actually start using the lessons learned.
And then learning from how you tried it out, right?
Exactly.
Deliberately thinking about what did I learn? How did I learn it? And then
Exactly.
it's that, yeah, how am I going to use that the next time? Yeah, yeah. And you also have a book coming out, which is, I think, not a directly lean book, but tell us about that too.
Yeah, I'd love to. So, as you said in the beginning, in general, I moved away from using too much jargon. And one area where I've seen a lot of jargon is, well, strategy and data. I don't need to tell you about it. It became really, really popular. And in general, I find data to be very, very important. So all the lean practitioners, I believe, will agree as well. But how we treat data is sometimes very, very problematic. So what I did, I partnered with Dr. Dominic Dellerman, and we looked into, okay, what is actually essential data, the minimum amount of data that you need to improve your strategy and to make better decisions. And it ties in nicely with basically lean approach to testing stuff, be it Toyota Kata, be it PDCA, everything we discussed earlier. Because in reality, to improve your strategy, to make better decisions, you need only 4 different data sets. You need to know what's happening inside your organization. You need to know what's happening in your industry. You need to know what your experts know, because people have a lot here, but that isn't captured.
So you
And
mean
you need to
your internal experts?
Exactly, exactly. Because what I like to say is companies don't know anything. It's people like you and me in companies that know something. If I leave, expertise leaves. So a company cannot claim it knows that anymore unless they have everything documented and standardized. And that is why in our research we found out that so many companies overlook their own internal expertise. Because not just that, but let's say that I'm starting a new project and I don't have access to you. So even though you might know something very, very useful for my project, if I don't have access to you, we are not efficient as we think we are. And then the fourth set, very obvious to every lean practitioner, but still overlook, customer data. How are customers reacting to the products, to the services, their needs, their desires, and so on. And these 4 data sets, it's easy to collect them. So that's what we cover in the book, how everything is connected. We called it augmented strategy, because our take is artificial intelligence, everything that's coming isn't about replacing humans, but it's about improving us, augmenting our existing capabilities. That's why we went with this augmented strategy instead of like some AI or something like that.
That's really cool. And I think it is actually very pertinent to people who are working in the lean area, particularly if you're involved in helping a company develop its strategy. If you are doing excuse the expression Hoshinkanri, these are the things that you need to know. And so it sounds like actually a book that lean practitioners should be taking a good look at.
Yeah.
So thanks for that. One of the thing is, when you were talking about the internal expertise and the lack of connection between internal experts, I think that really brings us also back to the ability of people in the organization, as you said, to actually have access to each other. And so I wonder if there's sort of when you're looking at, is there a voice of the hierarchy? Is the hierarchy getting in the way? Are your silos getting in the way? Or unspoken rules about you can't talk to this person unless you talk to this person first? Are they slowing the company down?
Absolutely. And I'm sharing my experience from mostly, I would say, European perspective. Most of the companies I worked in and worked with are primarily in Europe, although I also work in the Americas and Australia. And moving hierarchy to the side, like those examples when people say, why are you talking to me? You're 2 levels below, or you're a different type of organization. So that I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when people actually don't know what exists. And the practices I found insanely useful are communities of practice. That's It's a really, really simple thing to do. Simple does not mean easy. And this is where people start tripping on them and fail with communities of practice. Communities of practice require dedicated people. Not only that, what's very, very, very unfair from any organization is to try to establish community of practice, and then people volunteer, and then they're expected to do that on their free time. Hey, people, communities of practice are part of the paid work. They should be part of your 8-hour workload or whatever workload you have, not in addition to. And that pays off to any company or any leader that may be listening to this. It will pay off because people love sharing their expertise. That's the truth. Any expert I have met, okay, not any, there were maybe one or two. 99% of the experts I met in my life, when I asked them a question, they were so happy to tell me everything about it, so much that they committed cognitive murder. My brain hurt after they downloaded, but that doesn't matter. People love sharing their expertise. So the thing that pays off for any organization is to create an environment that will facilitate that. And don't try to penny pinch on that by saying, hey, volunteers, you get 2 pizzas. Oh, wow, maybe sodas as well. Congratulations. If people come forward to actually organize that, allow them to have that part of their workload. If there are abusers, deal with them in the moment. Don't try to create a system that will try to avoid abusers. Humans are very creative. We are obviously capable of finding ways to abuse any system. So it's better to deal with it on case by case and lead by example. You know, if you have a manager that's abusing the system, why shouldn't the employees do it as well? So deal and lead with examples. Oh, sorry, Bella. I went all over the place again. Sorry.
You're great. So Bruno, just to wrap up, tell us, what is your advice for a young person studying out? And I know you're working in the university, so what do you tell people?
Learn how to learn.
Learn how to learn.
Yes, that is something to young people that I wish I took that seriously earlier, and it's actually quite a big term, but I'll try to keep it very concise and to the point. First is understanding that everybody learns differently, including you as a young person. So some things that work for others might not work for you. And second, learning how to learn is one of the most scalable skill sets. The earlier in life you learn that, the more reward you will get out of it. Why? Because human brain doesn't learn linearly. It's not like a straight line, but it's geometrical. So you learn one thing, when you learn another thing, it opens a world of possibilities. And I remember that so vividly. In high school, I had a class on automatization. I didn't understand a thing. I passed it. I got an average grade, but I didn't understand it. I just had to, learn it by heart and pass my exams. And then at university, I had a professor that really knew how to teach. And I just had this moment when everything suddenly started making sense. And everything I learned in a high school suddenly opened up to me. So it wasn't I learned one new thing, but through this one thing, a world opened. And that's why I say, learn how to learn. There are many resources out there. There are many people that will help you. A funny book, it's somewhere here. A funny book out there. It's called How to Read a Book. I bought it. I haven't read it for many years. And then I finally sat down and it's amazing. Like most of us are learning from books like at elementary school level. And there are so many different levels. And few of the very brief practices I will share and then back to you is, one is learn how to talk with things, speak with books, speak with yourself, speak with inanimate objects, have a dialogues and conversations. It's so much richer than just thinking through. And another one is try to have a notebook or whatever. You don't need to write into it, but actually learning how to reflect is such a useful skill. And the simplest way I found it is, if you have a decision or something, just write down what you think would happen. Write down what you will do, and then do it. And then go back to that same page and just add what has happened. And if it was different from what you expected that would happen, why and how. And this is such a simple practice. And the sooner you have it, and if you have a notebook, I have like stacks of notebooks. Here is the latest one. It's just a small A5. If you have that, you will become a better professional. I promise you. Like I promise it's impossible not to become better. It doesn't matter in what profession you are. And I'll stop here. Learn how to learn.
That's really, really good advice, Bruno. Thanks. How do people find you?
Well, through you, of course, you know me. Other than that, you can always find me on a website, www.pesec.no. So a lot of topics we've spoken about today. I try to, share as much as I can, because I've been so blessed to learn from others. And I made a promise early in my life, what I learned, I will make available. So all my thoughts, I just write, I put it up there, read, use, do whatever. I hope it helps at least one person in the world. I'm happy.
That's great. And it's in the show notes, and it is a great website. Lots of interesting things. So thank you, Bruno Pešec, for journeying with me to the edges of Lean.
Thank you for having me.
This is Bella Engelbach, and I'd like to thank Bruno Pešec for being my guest on the Edges of Lean. How do you teach Lean and continuous improvement with less strange and unusual language? We'd love to hear from you. Find Bruno at https://www.pesec.no. Find me at leanforhumans.com, and you can find both of us on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you. Please join me in exploring more of the edges of Lean. There's a lot to learn. And check out my friends in the Lean Communicators community at leancommunicators.com. You'll find more podcasts and videos with lots of great new content every week. The Edges of Lean is written and produced by Bella Engelbach with support from Podcast Inc. This is a Lean for Humans production.